Hi, and welcome to the President's Forum podcast, where higher education leaders share insights, ideas, and solutions shaping the future of learning. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and today we're excited to be joined by Dr. Jennifer Cowley, President of the University of Texas at Arlington and one of the newest members of the President's Forum. Jennifer, so great to be with you today. We're excited to learn more about you and about the University of Texas at Arlington. To start out, can you just give us a little bit of background on you? How did you come to this position?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to have a career in public service and felt like local government was the best way to create impact that everyday citizens could feel. I trained to become a city planner, worked in city planning, and eventually was recruited to come back to a university and work in a research center. And while there, decided, okay, I'm going to pivot my career path and become a professor of city planning. Did that and found my way into public service in a different role, in leadership roles in a major public university. And so it's been a really wonderful career trajectory to be able to support and develop students and develop that next generation of city planners and serve the community.
You kind of are in the city planning model right now, right? I mean, how many students do you have, and what's the faculty that you're managing? That's a little bit of a city of sorts, right?
It is. I have more than 41,000 students and more than 6,000 faculty and staff. And so when you look at that, we're the size of a city. And, we have our own roads and infrastructure to maintain. And we have all kinds of activities on our campus. And so that level of systems thinking, I think, really comes in handy as we think about what it takes to run a modern university.
Yeah, I can see that experience would be very relevant. As we think about, I want to introduce our listeners to the University of Texas at Arlington and the work that you're doing down there. Can you just give us a 101 on the mission and tell us a little bit about how it's evolved since you've stepped into the role of president?
So I think it's a great question to ask. We are celebrating our 130th birthday this year. We started way back in 1895 as a small college. We transformed to a military institution, an agricultural college, a technical college, 2-year public college, and then ultimately became a 4-year university that evolved into a Research One university that has an urban mission that's comprehensive in its approach and committed to public service. Now, as we talk about, my coming into the role, we had really reached a really important moment in our history and trajectory. We had reached a designation within the state as a Texas Tier 1 research university. And so it was a great moment to say, okay, we've accomplished the plans that we set forth. What does our next chapter look like? And so we worked to create a strategic plan that focused on the things that you would expect: student success, research and innovation. But one of the things I wanted to place more emphasis on is community engagement. We're in a huge region. How are we impacting the communities that surround us, the communities that many of our students are coming from? How can we bring more focus and intention around our efforts to engage with communities and support their success?
Now, the metro area that you are located in is truly massive. I mean, it's one of the largest in the United States, right?
That's correct. We're soon on a path to pass Chicago to become the third largest metro area in the country. We have 8 million people. We're on a trajectory to grow to 12 million. And so it truly is a phenomenal sized university. Arlington is located literally smack dab in the middle of the metropolitan area. And so we have a great location to be able to serve students from all across our region and far beyond.
And like you mentioned, you're in a growing area, right? Jobs are coming to you. And so you have this great opportunity to prepare students for careers that are, coming your way.
Absolutely. And it's one of the fun parts of the role in our mission as a university is to say, how do we support the economic development of our region? We are a fast growing region, but talent is the number one thing that employers are looking for when they're considering whether the Dallas-Fort Worth region is the right place. And so the strength of our engineering programs, healthcare programs are certainly a key attractor, so that when companies say, we're thinking about coming into this industry, will we have the talent? They can always say yes.
Right. Right. And okay, so I know that one of the objectives that you have as an institution is to serve all learners. And that, frankly, is a huge it's a huge priority for all of the President's Forum members, and that's to create access for everybody. Are there some specific programs and strategies that the University of Texas at Arlington has deployed to support Hispanic and Latino students?
Yeah, so I would say as we think about all learners, we're thinking about where are we seeing areas where students are succeeding or not succeeding. And they could be Hispanic, they could be Asian, they could be any race or ethnicity. We want to make sure that all of those students are moving forward and succeeding. And one of the things that we identified is that we have some learners who are coming in who exhibit some at-risk behaviors upon admission. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing those needs and making sure that we're supporting those students. So we created summer bridge programming that invites students to participate and then provides additional coaching throughout the academic year to make sure that students are getting connected to the resources that are going to help them to succeed. If we have a first generation student that may not have a family support system that knows how to encourage them, hey, you should reach out for supplemental instruction support, or have you seen your advisor? Have you contacted the Career Center? We want to make sure that we're connecting those students to resources that matter. And then another program that we started, thanks to some FAFSA revisions, we were more easily able to identify students who are experiencing homelessness. And we recognize that's a very high risk factor for non-retention, because anything that can go wrong, that's going to be disruptive for that student. So we created an Emerging Mavericks program that helps support students who are aging out of foster care or experiencing homelessness to make sure that they have the support services they need, so that a minor financial issue is not what's preventing them from being successful as a student at UTA.
That makes a lot of sense. Clearly, if you have fundamental problems, that fundamental, it's going to be really hard to study, to be able to perform academically. So solving that, I know some of our other institutions have similar initiatives to help with temporary acute needs for students. So that's very interesting.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about retention and completion and your approach to that at UTA. This is something that these are metrics that are all about quality of education. You want to retain and you want to help people complete. Otherwise, you leave them with debt and no credential to a pathway to opportunity. So how do you view that? What are you doing to increase retention and completion?
Well, first, we're identifying at the retention point where students are beginning to struggle. So that first time that they're getting a GPA that's below a 3.0, where can we intervene and put them on a different trajectory to make sure they're getting the support so they can be successful? And that's included in some cases counseling that says maybe our community college partners would be the right partner as a next step for you in some cases. In other cases, it's here's the support resources we can bring to you. And so we have a whole program set up to help support those students as they make that first semester transition and we see that they're not yet on track to be successful at the institution. In terms of completion, it's focused on how do we make sure we're achieving timely completion. Many of our students are successful, they're graduating, but they're not necessarily graduating in a timely manner. And we know that means more debt, more difficulty in staying on track and being successful. And so we have a major effort that we've undertaken in the last year that not only focuses on that completion, but it focuses on the first launch. How do we track where our students are going and are they landing in a job that requires a college degree? Because if they're not landing in a job that requires a college degree, their odds of getting a job in the future that requires a college degree diminish. So what can we do to make sure that we're supporting student success? And so we've undertaken a major data initiative to be able to provide an academic program level. What are the first year outcomes for our students, the 5th year, the 10th year, but in a really detailed way. And so we're able to say what percentage of our students in a particular college have bought a home within 5 years. What percentage of them are repaying their student loan debt? Those sorts of things so that we can get down to outcomes at a program level. Often we have institutional metrics that say completion, or, we take great pride that we have the highest starting salaries of any university in the University of Texas system. But that's driven by certain majors. We all know that there are programs that
Right.
may be more successful or less successful in supporting our students. And so we set up a whole program to identify which programs need to undertake action planning and how can they support the career development of our students so that they're preparing them to be successful in positions as they move forward.
That's amazing data that you're collecting. I mean, that's a treasure trove for quality in higher ed. I'd love it if we had that kind of data captured by every institution. That helps you make better decisions. Can you give us an example of how decisions that are impacted by that data? How do you
Absolutely.
use that?
So, for example, we saw that the amount of debt that students were taking out in a couple of our programs was higher than was typical for our institution. And looking into it, it was longer times to graduation. And so then looking into it further, well, how many hours are required to complete this program? And we discovered it was more than 120, that we had a couple of examples that were more than 120. And so in those cases, it's like, well, how can we shave a semester off of this coursework? How do we compare to peers? And, sometimes there are local decisions that are made that are very well intentioned, that we feel our students will be better prepared if they have this additional coursework. But in the end, we need our 4-year degree programs to be 4 years and able to be completed in 4 years. And so we worked with those academic programs. They were able to revise the curriculum, think in different ways about what the credit hour requirements are to pull down some of that student loan debt that's likely to be taken out by their students and get students on track to graduate in a more timely manner. So that's just one small example. In other cases, it's more what's happening in the curriculum or additional internship resources that are being made available to students so that they have what's needed, the knowledge and skills to help them be successful when they get ready for the job market.
I love it. That's exactly how this data should inform action, right? You should be able to say, oh, we got to change that. That is not performing how it's designed to perform or in the best interest of this student. So it sounds like a great use of that data, and I wish that more institutions had that kind of data to make decisions with.
Well, one of the wonderful things is that we live in a data analytics world now, and there are all kinds of partners that are out there to be able to help. So I'm very fortunate in the state of Texas that we have access to state level data that we were able to pair with system level data. But we went further than that, and we wound up partnering with Equifax, who was able to provide very detailed credit level data because they collect data on all of us, and they're able to provide that to institutions. And another resource we used was Stepping Blocks, which was able to provide us career outcome data and career trajectory data. And so those two added resources are things that could be available to any institution, even if you're not in a state that has detailed level data like we do.
I think you might be setting yourself up for some conversations with other presidents next time you talk to them. But that's some great. I know that other presidents have used Equifax, but the way to get to that is probably there's a lot of details to explore. So I'm sure that other presidents will be looking into it. It's an interesting time to be in higher ed. It's truly an interesting time. We're seeing so many changes, and some of them are really exciting, and some of them are very troubling. So there are some opportunities and some challenges. When you look ahead for your institution, what do you see as the biggest opportunities or biggest challenges that you need to face this next decade?
So I'd say both an opportunity and a challenge, and that centers around the role of artificial intelligence and how it's going to shape the jobs of the future. We all read the headlines that jobs are changing, and some of that is easy to address. How do we help students understand how to utilize AI within their specific discipline? For example, we're the largest public nursing school in the country, and so we're looking at how do we help AI in supporting nurses in their everyday activities. But there's the uncertainty of what jobs are going to go away and what are new jobs that are
Right.
going to emerge. And the speed at which AI is changing the workplace is faster than what it takes to prepare a student for a bachelor's degree or a doctoral
Right.
degree or you name it. And so it's a question of how quickly can we adapt as we have this emerging technology come into play. And I can remember when I was in school, the internet was just being rolled out. So we didn't have the World Wide Web yet. And people were saying, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin, what a college education means and things like that. And, the value, we use that every single day in our work, that
Right.
it has not replaced it has replaced some jobs, but it has not replaced in wholesale jobs. So I think it's really about the adaptation and how do we seek to be opportunistic in preparing our students so that they can be leaders as they're moving into organizations where they're going to take on important roles to help teach the people around them how to use AI effectively in their work. And at the same time, making sure that we're preparing for those jobs of the future that are going to be emerging opportunities for our students.
And are your faculty and staff thinking like that as well? Are they looking at students and working with students to say, all right, honestly, I got to tell you, this career path is probably going to fade with artificial intelligence, but these career paths will probably open. Is that like a system-wide approach, or is that, a leadership approach now that needs to be taken far and wide within the institution?
I will say, hearing from our students, they're very concerned. They're concerned, am I in a major that will lead to an outcome, or will I be AI'd out of a job?
Right.
And so it's a real concern for our students. And I'll say it's a spectrum across the faculty and staff. I would say universally, they understand that AI is going to create change. And in some places, it's being very well integrated. Our College of Business integrates AI into their coursework consistently. That's great. They're already thinking about how do we prepare professionals that are ready to use AI in their everyday business. We have other departments that are less clear on how AI is going to impact. Or, for example, in our writing programs, how do we make sure that students are developing fundamental communication skills that are going to be essential, regardless of whether you have AI or not, but make sure that students are engaging in creative thought, engaging in iterative learning as they try to work through writing processes, but also use AI as a helpful tool. And so it's how do you build those bridges? And I think there's a lot of great experimentation. Our Center for Teaching and Learning does a lot of work around this and trying to help prepare our faculty and help them think creatively about how they can assign different types of evaluation mechanisms and things like that to get the best out of our students so that we're preparing them as well as possible. And I'm sure you've heard, like many others, the key concerns from employers are critical thinking skills and communication skills. And we have to make sure that our students, regardless of what their major is, are leaving with those as essential skills.
Right. And it's something that I don't think anybody has a real answer to yet, other than this is important and we're all working on trying to solve this. And, there's going to be massive disruption that comes to the economy because of new technology. And that's not just with AI, that's with every wave of technology. So we have to be nimble enough to be able to move with technology and embrace it and get better outcomes. I'm mindful that we're going to have other members of the forum that are listening in on this conversation. And so for a final question, I just want to ask you some advice on the advice that you would give other institutions about serving all students, creating access for all. Is there ever any paradigm that you use when you're thinking about open access, or is there any program that has been particularly effective? Is there any advice you can give?
Well, so one of the things that I think is wonderful about an institution like the University of Texas at Arlington and many of the other institutions that are part of the President's Forum is that we are focused on making sure we're supporting traditional learners, adult learners, the full spectrum, and that we have large online programs and in-person programs. And it's continuously focusing on who are the audiences we serve, and then how are we making sure that we're reinforcing in every unit across the campus, we're here to support all students. And that can be everything from how we think about our classroom scheduling systems and what hours of operation we have for advising services, or you name it. There's places all over the place where we're creating artificial barriers that we have put in place ourselves.
Good point.
So one of the things that we have done through our strategic planning process is just over and over try to find where are those places that we have created unnecessary barriers and what can we do to remove those for our students. I'll just give you one example. There was a hold, it's called a departmental hold. And a student was like, hey, I can't figure out how to remove this. The department says it's not theirs. Well, we had created a thing that almost anybody could turn on to just say departmental hold. but no way of seeing where the actual hold existed. And so it turned out we had more than 100 different kinds of holds that could be put on that would prevent registration. And it's like, wait a second, there are reasons we need to connect with students, but is the
Right.
hold on registration the place that we need to make that happen or not? And so we just said, we're getting rid of all holds. You have to petition to keep your hold. And in the end, it was like a handful that were required because of statute or really important reasons
Right.
that we have to connect with the student. But we were able to eliminate a whole host of barriers just by asking the question, why are we doing this? And what can we do to help better support our students?
I love the self-awareness to say we have created artificial barriers, because it's not just, one institution that's done that. It's across all institutions, and it's within our system. We've created so many artificial barriers that being self-aware and looking at those and changing those can make a huge difference for access for students.
Absolutely. And, there are hundreds of different other ways that we can all work on this, and just being conscious of saying, what can we do as make it as frictionless as possible for students to engage with us, to access the learning that they want to achieve and to achieve their outcomes that they're looking for. I'm in the dream business. I get to help students achieve their dreams. That's a pretty awesome responsibility. So how do I make it as easy as possible for students to achieve what they want to achieve?
That's a great way to end. I'm going to let you get back to the dream business. Keep helping people fulfill their dreams. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation, and look forward to hearing more from peers.
To our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about the University of Texas at Arlington, visit uta.edu. And to explore more conversations and resources from the President's Forum, head to presidentsforum.org.